All right. Good evening. Good evening. How is everybody? We are live on social media. I am your host, Francine Perkins. And of course, I am the founder and the owner of Discover You. We are a professional and personal leadership development and training company. And of course, we're on day 4. It's Wednesday, and I am super excited. What we're doing is pretty much the goal was or is to kill two birds with one stone. So we're talking Black History Month and entrepreneurship. So if you did not know, February the 13th through the 20th is National Eship Week, a National Entrepreneurship Week. So I really wanted to just dive into some conversations about Black History Month, where we are as a society, as a people, as a nation, and just having special guests this week with me. So today I am excited because my former alumni, Marlon Mitchell. I'm gonna call you. I was trying to see if I was gonna say Dr. Mitch or Dr. Marlon or Doc Mitch. I didn't know which one was cooler.
I tell you, Marlon as well. Well, Marlon does well.
So we're gonna go with Marlon on today. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. So Marlon, of course, welcome, welcome, and welcome as we represent IU in
You're
all
right
things
about that.
education and entrepreneurship.
Okay, yeah, first off, I'll just like to thank you for having me today. Really wasn't expecting it or anything like that, but there's so many great things that happen in our community amongst our people that just goes unnoticed. And until we have people like you, Francine, that says, hey, wait a minute, we have these pearls and these jewels within our own communities. Let's
Mhm.
go ahead and highlight them and let's let people know what's going on. And so for that, I thank you. I'm very appreciative and most humbled and grateful to be on your show today.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. Me too. And, I actually think about a couple of years ago because the first time I ran into you since college, of course, was at the Gary Chamber of Commerce meeting at the Art House. And
Yes.
I had just started my business, didn't really even know what to expect. And I'm like, let me go to the chamber meeting. And then there was one familiar face. So that really calmed me down. I'm like, oh my gosh. And then to learn what you were doing, and it was similar in the direction of what I was doing, that made me feel better. You also gave me a very warm welcome. So even though that was a couple of years ago, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And, I always tell people you have to be careful how you treat people, because you never know in life where you will end up again and you'll see those same faces. So again, I'm just very grateful. Appreciate you being here and taking time out of your busy schedule. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Yeah. And a whole lot of things that we learned growing up, they really just came to mind as we get a little older and we start to realize what it really meant. I'm quite sure we all had grandparents, great grandparents, parents that told us, don't burn any bridges. We had parents that told us, be mindful of what you say.
Right.
We also had them tell us, watch your words. Words hurt more than actions.
Mm-hmm.
And so all of these things we hear and we've heard, and now we begin to share them because we really know what they mean. And I like one of the things that you had at the bottom of the email that you sent to me. I think it read something like know your why, and when you know your why, then you'll find your purpose. And a lot of people go their whole lives searching for their why and never finding their purpose. And I'm just glad that you are doing what you're doing with leadership, helping people identify their why and then putting them on a path to their purpose. That's something that's life changing. We talk about generational curses. That's one way we can break a curse. We can help
Yes.
people find their whys and put them on a path to their purpose. And the only thing that can happen with that is that they'll be living their calling. You know?
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's why I'm just so honored to have you here today because you have of course, there's an extensive resume, but besides the resume, you're just very humble about everything that you do. You know, I was trying to even think tonight. I don't even know what direction I want to go in because there's so much that we need to talk about, that we need to cover to help people, to help the generation, to help men, to help women, to help businesses, to help you name it, our community. So, with me saying that, where do you think, Marlon, we should start? Because you are known as Mr. Transformation, quote unquote, going into these dire situations, changing them around. So it's 2021. We've had a lot to take place. We're in the middle of a pandemic. Um, we've just come off of a crazy, government system.
Mm-hmm.
We're trying to start over. What do you want to share about that from a leadership perspective about where we need to start in our communities?
You know, that's a great question. And I always say the best place to start is where you're at. People say, well, I waited um, to this age to start school. Well, you started school when it was your time. It doesn't matter whether you started as a traditional student, graduating 17, 18 from high school, going to college, or you decided to put your children through college, your grandchildren through college to start. I recall when I was dean of a college in Atlanta, um, this grandmother, she brought her granddaughter into the college and saying, well, I have to do something with her, and I was like, well, she's sitting right here. It's not like she's not present. She said, you know what? Um, I know that she has all these gifts and talents. She just don't know what to do with them or whatever. And so we had a talk or whatever. We figured out that, that that the college was a place for her. And before we got finished with that conversation, she was like, you know what, Dr. Mitchell, I think I'm gonna go to college too. So here it is. I had a granddaughter that
Yeah.
was 21
Hmm.
and her grandmother, who at that time was 76,
Wow.
both the same day. And they graduated at the same time. A couple of years later, it was a technical college, so it was 2 years. And at 78, she walked across the stage. I gave her her diploma, and she was like, "You know what, Dr. Mitchell? I put my children through school. I put my grandchildren through school. I saw my nieces and nephews. I saw them go through school." She said, "You helped me realize it was my turn." And I
Mm.
was like, you know what? It's always been your turn. You just never took it. And
Oh,
so I
wow.
think that that's really what it's all about. Sometimes we have to take our turn.
Yes,
We spend
I
so
love
much
that.
time holding the door for others that we fail to walk through the door.
I'm taking notes while you talking.
You
That
know?
was good. Take
And
our
um,
turn.
and when we fail to walk through the door, that means that we never get in. We never
Hmm.
get our seat at the table, and therefore we never realize what the good Lord has for us, because we're always putting someone else first. That doesn't mean that we go out and be selfish, but that does mean that at some point we have to look at self and feed self. It's one thing to be selfish, it's another thing to be selfless, it's another thing to feed self. And I think that at some point we have to start feeding ourselves.
Hmm.
You know, and this other story comes to mind, and I'll share that. And this goes to entrepreneurship, because alongside of education comes entrepreneurship, and we know that there's different types of education and intelligence. There's different types of entrepreneurship. This story was I had spent a number of years in Africa. I don't know if you know that. And when I came back from Africa, I didn't come back home to Indiana. I went down to South Georgia. When I got there, I had lined up employment and everything. And so when I got there, I was a couple of days late because of the delays and things like that. And I had a retreat to go to. And on that retreat, I felt so discouraged by the dean at that time at the college I was going to be a professor at. He told me when I was sharing my dreams and aspirations with him, he told me, Mitchell, you don't know your place. Now, check this out. I
Wow.
had that someone else had told me that same thing when I arrived in that community. It was a white woman and a white gentleman said the same thing. Mitchell, you don't know your place because when I came into that community, I saw a gold mine. I saw diamonds and things that the people would like me didn't see. Other folks was enjoying it, but the black folk didn't see it. Similar to what's going on in Gary. And so when we got back from the retreat, I had another offer in Atlanta, and I was like, you know what? I started to call well, it was actually Georgia State, to call Georgia State and tell them that I wasn't interested. But after that drive with the dean at the college I was at, when I got back, I called them and said, you know what? I do want to come in for the interview. So I drove up to Atlanta, had the interview. They offered me a job on the spot. I told them that, you know what, let me think about it. So instead of driving 75, going back down to South Georgia, I went down the state road. It was State Road 19. I remember it like it was yesterday. And normally it would take 2 hours and 15 minutes to get to where I was living at in South Georgia, but going that state route, it took about 4.5 hours. So I'm driving down. I come to this little town, and there was some development going on off to the side of the road. Said condos starting at $245,000. I was like, man, how are they getting $245,000 here in this place with nothing? I just left Atlanta,
And
and the
was that
condos were
a month? Not a month. I mean, to purchase it, it was
yeah, it was 245,000 for a
that's
condo for a condo.
wow.
Listen, in the middle of nowhere. Now take it. When I was in Atlanta, I had looked at condos because I told you I was offered a job, and I told them just wait. But on my way back, I had some time, so I stopped in, looked at a couple of condos right downtown Atlanta. There was condo in the Oliver Winston building. Actually, was the name of the building, and there was one on top floor, 175. So of course, I had some interest in that, but I'll say, I'm going to drive back, think about it, because all my stuff had been delivered to South Georgia where I was at. And I turn in, I look at, they were under construction. I go through, look through the units, and they were still framed up. And I say, man, no way. So when I came back out, there was a car parked in front of the trailer. You know how they have the trailers when you're doing development? I walked in, and I asked the young lady that was sitting behind the desk, I was like, how are you all getting $245,000 for condos here? She
I
said,
cannot wait to hear this answer.
she said, baby, that's not just the condo, that's the building. They were building these 4-unit condos, quads, 245,000. I said, you know what? I'll be back in a half an hour. And of course, I had all my things transferred. I had already established my bank account and everything like that. Went into the bank, got a pre-qual letter, and came back in half an hour. She said, "Baby, it's an old white woman." She said, "Baby, you're the first person who did what they said they were going to do, and the time they going said they was going to do it in. How can I help you?" I said, just like the condo. She said, "All right, yeah, I want you to get it here, and we're going to do this thing." So she taught me the ropes about contingencies and stipulations and things you put in contracts. So I did it, and by the time my condo was built, my condo had a value of roughly about $340,000. So I'd already appreciated $100,000
Right,
within before the thing was built.
right.
So she gave me a phone call, and she said, "Mitchell, um, I'm selling a plantation, 125,000 acres. I know you know somebody that want to buy it." I said, "I don't know anybody that can buy an acre." She said, "Yes, you do." And so a couple of days went past. I got a phone call from one of my friends that lived up in Connecticut. He asked me if I would pick his uncle up from the airport. I said, "Sure." Pick him up. This guy get in my car, looks like a really dark chocolate Colonel Sanders, with the squiggly a mustache and everything. And he turned out he was a lobbyist, a Republican lobbyist in Connecticut. And I asked him just on the fudge conversation, "Do you know anybody that would like to buy some land in Georgia?" He said, "What's on it?" "I don't know." So I called Miss Barbara. I asked Miss Barbara what's on it. She said, "Row crops." I let him know. He was sitting next to me and said, "Row crops." He said, "Is there any timber and water on it?" said, I don't know. I called and said, is there any timber and water? She said, yes, there's timber and there's a lake, a pond, and an underwater aquifer. I said, yeah, lake, pond, underwater aquifer. He says, I represent a Russian and a Korean entity, and we'll have some interest. He made a phone call right there. He said, can we see it tomorrow? These guys flew in from wherever they were at. They made it there the next day, looked at it, and they bought it, and they closed within 30 days. 125,000 acres. I
Wow.
had no idea who this woman was.
Mm-hmm.
Her name was Barbara. I'm just going to call her Barbara W. But she happened to be the Georgia real estate commissioner. I didn't know that. And I take it she had sold me my the unit that I purchased, but I had no idea who she was. And so she said, Mitchell, I can't pay you what you earn. $125,000, 125,000 acres, no matter what that price is for the acreage. With land purchases, usually you make about 12 to 15%. That was a lot of money. She said, I can't pay you what you earn, but I can give you a
Right.
gift. She gave me a gift. It was enough for me to start a business, right?
Wow.
And so she said, well, Mitchell, so what do you want to do? She asked me again. I said, I want to do what you do. And that was the start of me building my first subdivision.
Wow.
I used the money that's in to build the first subdivision, and then so in that, I learned a whole lot about construction. I learned a lot about
Mm-hmm.
development. Met a lot of great people from really just really crazy influential Black people, architects, Art H.J. Russell and those guys, Turner. I met these like really big guys, and it just changed my whole way of looking at things and looking at community. And at that point, I realized that, you know what? I'm more than an educator, I'm a community builder.
Oh,
And that's
wow.
what I
That's
started doing. I
powerful.
started looking at it. And then another lesson that she taught me, I was getting, well, like my granddad used to tell me all the time, boy, you're getting too big for your britches. So I guess I was getting too big for my britches. My head was puffing up because everything I touched was turning to gold. And she said, Mitchell, it's better to have 1% of something than 100% of nothing. This was when 2008 hit, the big crash. I didn't understand what she was saying, but I soon realized that within a couple of months that, I was too busy trying to hold on to everything that I had collected that I was about to lose everything. And she said, 1% of something is better than 100% of nothing. She was letting me know that it's time to get out. And so that was another lesson that I learned. So for one thing, you never know where your blessing's going to come from, number one. And number two, you don't want to close any doors because my whole life I had grown up um, thinking that there was no such thing as a good white person, thinking that there was white people were the devils, they were inherently evil, and all that kind of stuff. My uncles just banged that stuff into my head, and realized that pretty much people are going to be people no matter what color they are. But there's some angels that's out there, come in all shapes, sizes, colors, whatever
Yeah.
you want to call it, and we just have to be able to discern and recognize them, and then
Yes.
let them speak into our lives. And if I was to take that philosophy when I first walked into her trailer and saw a white woman walk back out, I think my life would have been totally different.
Right. You wouldn't be in
So
this situation to be able to tell
yes,
this story to
wouldn't be
us.
able to tell the story, right? And so that's a story about a depressed community that had jewels and value, people telling you that you don't know your worth and your value, and then just letting God work in your life and say, you know what? I'm going to give you everything that you need.
Mm-hmm.
And those same people, they were like, oh, Mitchell's doing such great things. My name is all over the place and all that kind of stuff. But it wasn't about that for me. It was about building community. I wanted people in that community to have the same privileges and the same lifestyle as folk that lived across the river. And that's where I've always been, and I've dedicated my life to just building people and trying to build community.
And I love that. So I got two places I want to go, and I'm trying to figure out how we're gonna bridge this together, but I'm gonna let you do it. So you talked about building the community. Of course, you have your own leadership training business. I want you to tell me about that. And then we're going to actually bring this all home together with entrepreneurship, with community, and Black history. But tell us, I want to know, you build people, you're building communities. What made you build the leadership business?
Yeah, in a leadership business, it's called the Institute for Leadership and Performance Improvement. Um, when I made it back to Gary, I left when I was in high school, didn't come back until 10 years ago. Um, so a lot of time had passed. And when I came back, I just saw our children and some of the leaders in our not-for-profits not doing what was done when I was coming up in Gary. And I said, you know what? There has to be a better way. I've been blessed to have traveled the world. I've been blessed to be educated at the best institutions. I've been blessed to work with some of the greatest minds. I was like, you know what? I have to do something for our youth. And I started the Institute for Leadership and Performance Improvement to work with children, and started work with children from kindergarten through 12th grade with the Gary Community School Corporation, doing a really awesome summer program. We took education and turned it on its head, right? And what I mean by that is we the school day normally is from what, 8:30 to 2:30. We started the Institute for Leadership. We first off we put a college curriculum in, even for kindergartners, and I'll tell you how we
Awesome.
did that in a minute. But we put a college curriculum in, and we made leadership go through everything. We had the arts, of course, a part of that too. But our day started at 7:30, and it didn't end to 5:30. We served the children breakfast, lunch, and dinner, but we also had the greatest people come in. So when we were doing our arts program and our theater program, we brought a director in from Atlanta. We brought a choreographer in from New York. We brought engineers over from BP Amico. We brought civil engineers and different things like that from the EPA. We just had people from all walks of life. We even had the director of the Essence Music Festival come in to engage our children, and it just lit. Our children were lit on fire. Children that had been marked as discipline problems, children that had all types of issues with behavior and different things like that. They were all so engaged. And the thing about it is, we had slots. We were slotted to do like 250 children. At any given day, we would have 400, 500 children
hmm And I know
all
you know
day,
this,
right?
Marlon. This is even one of the things that Bill Strickland talks about, the way we pour into our kids, but what we give them is really what builds them. So if they
Mhm.
see us as leaders, like you said, getting the engineers from BP in these different places, it actually instills value into them that is not visible. You know what I mean?
Right, right.
And
Because we know that the difference is experience and exposure. A lot of people think the difference is money. The difference
no,
is experience and exposure. With experience and exposure, you'll make your money.
right,
You know how to make your money. But if you
right,
never see a doctor, you never see a lawyer, you never see an engineer, you can't. It's going to be difficult to be those things. And I always like
yeah,
to say, you can't be what you can't see. So the whole
yeah,
idea was to expose them to that level of person, and then let them tell their story,
right,
right? Because a lot of times we forget our stories. We
yeah,
say, well, Dr. Mitchell or Minister Bergens, that you just woke up one morning and you were who you were, forgetting to tell the story that, yeah,
yeah,
I had to walk these same streets. Yeah, I had to go through my trials and have my share of fights and had my share of doing things that I'm not so proud of, and be able to tell those stories
right,
so the young folk can relate and say, you know what? Okay, it's not so bad. That's where I'm at. But if he did it or she did it, I can do it,
yeah,
right? And that's what it comes down to. And I think Arthur Ashe said it best, right? Arthur Ashe said that from what we get, we can make a living, but what we give, we can make a life,
yeah,
right? And so we're about making lives. Anytime that you talk about leadership, is about making lives. Now it depends on how you look at that. And so, like I said, the leadership started with youth, and then I realized that, you know what, I can touch even more youth.
hmm
I started training um, nonprofit leaders and youth leaders across the country. So now the Institute for Leadership, we've been to 9 states with active programs, doing really great things with leaders and giving them the curriculum and the tools to engage and immerse the children in their community with these great STEM and leadership qualities, and just having all folk just pour into them, and that's what it really comes down to. How much are you willing to give to change somebody's life?
Yes, absolutely. That's actually something that I'm writing about right now. Is just that transparency, like you said, of the story.
Mm-hmm.
Um, as an educator, that we have all kinds of people walking through the doors, all walks of life, from all countries, that at the core of it all, there's still a story of what they've gone through. And we have to let them know they're not the only ones who have gone through it, going through it, will go through it. So there's something about that story, it's something about that transparency, and us as servant leaders just even being in a place of our heart, with people and them seeing us in all facets of it. So I love that. So share with the people. I love to give tools for the toolbox. So we have entrepreneurship, we have leadership. What tool will you give to someone who's going to see this at whatever time? Because we're going to record it, it's going to go on YouTube. Even if somebody doesn't see it today, they're going to eventually see it. It's here. What would you like to share to that entrepreneur during this time, to that young person during this time? What would you like to share?
If you read this right behind me, right, it says limitation lives only in our minds, but if we use our imaginations, our possibilities become limitless. That's it, right? The only limitation that you have from being the best you and realizing your dreams is you. I think someone once said that we all have the same 24 hours in a day. What are you going to do with yours? So my challenge to an entrepreneur, to a young person is, what are you doing with your 24 hours? You know that 8 of that is going to go to sleep. A couple of hours probably go to transportation and doing stuff, but you still have a number of hours that you can be doing to either edify yourself or edify your community or edifying your family. Are you using that other time to build? And people, a lot of times folks say, well, I don't have the money, I don't know. You know what? Most people didn't start out with a whole lot of money. They started out with an idea and they were
Right.
hungry
Yeah.
and they went on the grind, right? But they started, and that's number one, right? And one thing that that I came to realize is that when people see you grinding,
Yes.
older people, especially older people, and I love my seniors and my elders. I surround myself with 3 types of people: those who love me unconditionally, I can do no wrong; those who don't care, they hating all the time, and I can't do anything right; and then those who have nothing to gain and nothing to lose from pouring into me,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so I surround myself with those 3 types of people. And with those 3 types of people, man, I've maintained, I've been encouraged when I need to be encouraged. I've been told exactly that, you know what, I do smell pretty bad and I need to clean up. And then
Right.
I've also been said, well, Mitchell, have you tried this? I've been given some tools or that other piece that I needed to go to the next level. And but those people are here. They're around. But if you're not moving, if you're not sharing your dreams and your aspirations, you're not trying to find your purpose, then you won't come in contact with those people. The
Mm-hmm.
worst thing that any entrepreneur can do is to roam in their same circle, and in that same circle, there you can't do anything more than that. If you're the lion in your circle,
Come on.
then you need to change your circle, right?
You got to change the
Um,
circle.
you
Yeah.
know, lions, lions run with lions, but they also carve out their own territory
Mm-hmm.
and they start their own. So, but then when that time is up, then those lionesses will put that lion out, and he got to start all over again. So we should
Mhm.
never stop building. We should never stop building, and we should never stop trying to figure out how to become a better person.
Absolutely.
And so my advice is, if you haven't started, start. If you are doing something, keep moving. Figure out, is this the right place? Is this where I'm supposed to be at to go to where I need to go? You know, it's all right to have friends in different places. Sometimes you got to leave this set of friends and find another set of friends so that you can go to that next place. And I would say, the more friends you have, the better. It's just that you have to make sure that you have a really good discernment of who's in your circle.
Absolutely.
I always say that I haven't made any new friends since kindergarten. So my boys are always going to be my boys, and we've been together since kindergarten. Honestly, went to the same church, same schools, and everything. But I have met some really great people along the way that I will call friend. They're just not, that brother type, but we have found ways that we connect and we can collaborate and we synergize and we move as a collective, and that's
Mhm.
always worked. you know um, but you have to have those type of people in your life.
Mhm. And
So people
especially
walk
with
around
entrepreneur.
thinking and cutting off their haters. Yeah, you don't have to take in everything that your hater says, but you do want to pay attention because some of it could be true, and then
Mhm.
you act on that, but you don't let it consume you, but you
Mhm.
use it as a motivator to go to wherever you need to be.
Absolutely. Let's talk to the community about entrepreneurship because you just said some good things right here. And here I am again. I'm like, which part I want to kind of go on because that was even my experience with the people. Once I started this business and I knew, like, no, this is it. This is a part of my purpose. This is a part of my destiny. This is my bloodline is doing this. I realized, just like you said, you have to change your circle, you have to change your mindset, you have to change your thoughts. There's so many things that has to change. With transformation is just basically every day, almost 24 hours a day, because you're taking in the moments. I can remember just taking in the moments. I can remember taking in the seconds. I can remember taking in times when I felt spiritually just the momentum, of what was going to take place and how it was going to take place. And a lot of times with entrepreneurship, we do not have the right people, the right mentors, the right conversation. And here's my big thing. I'm serious, Marlon, about this. I still tell people to this day, leaders are readers. It sounds cliche-ish, but when you are a leader, a part of even your daily acumen is reading a book. It is expanding your own mind, it's mastering your craft, um, seeing what's happening in the world, like you said, from leadership, because right now, even with the pandemic, that's the conversation happening in every boardroom. This is what I say, every boardroom, every
Mhm.
lunchroom, every classroom, how leaders are handling their people, their employees, their staff, whatever the case is during this pandemic. How do we help the entrepreneur at this stage of the game in a pandemic understand they got to change their thoughts, they got to change their circle, they have to change their friends, and they have to be in purpose? I know that was a
Right.
lot, but
No, you know what? But it all fits together, right?
yeah.
And actually, I am doing something in Springfield, Missouri right now. Exactly what you're talking about. During the pandemic, it's hit a lot of people a lot of different ways. I think it's forcing us to become more innovative and creative with not only how we develop our crafts, but actually how we go into the marketplace to make money, right? And I would say that during this pandemic, yes, some people lost their jobs, some people lost their businesses, some people started businesses, right? And so we're looking at the world a lot differently. Some people became billionaires and millionaires. Some people was a millionaire yesterday and now they're trying to figure out how they pay their rent tomorrow. But what this pandemic has, if it's taught us nothing else, it taught us that nothing is absolute. for certain, for sure. So if we know that, then um, then that kind of sets a foundation, a platform where we start from, right? And just as you said, is
Mhm.
that now this is a time where we need to be building. And when I say that, we need to build our minds. We have to look at if we needed to figure out how cryptocurrency works. This is a great time to figure out how it works, right? We have more time because we can't really go out and do anything. We can't really spend any money. So if we always wanted to invest, this is time to invest because you can't go to the movies, you can't go to different places. So you should have a couple of dollars. And the misnomer is that you have to have a lot of money to invest. Man, more people become millionaires with penny stocks. And penny stocks are those stocks that cost less than $2 or $5 or whatever, right? So
Right.
for most stocks, you can get stocks for like 20 cents. And there's one company that I've been following, um, and it was at trading at 7 cents a couple of days ago. And when I looked at it today, it was up to 15 cents. I said, man, I wish I would have bought that. I would have doubled my money, right? But I was just looking at it because a lot of times, if you don't study those stocks, then you can lose a lot of money too, even though
Right.
they don't cost very much. But
Hmm.
again, the whole thing comes back to studying and educating yourself
Study.
so
Yeah.
that you know what moves to make and you know a little bit better how to make them. The other piece of it is that during this pandemic, we should be taking the time to really get to know ourselves a little better. You know, if we're not taking the time to get to know ourselves and know what our true buttons are, or knowing what our true limitations are, then then once the pandemic is over, it's going to be just as hard as it was before the pandemic, right? But if we
Yep.
take that time to learn more about ourselves at this time, when the pandemic, after the pandemic, or during this pandemic, we should be able to make some boss moves.
Hmm.
And I'm just glad to be able to turn around and talk to folk and see folk making a lot of boss moves in Gary right now.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, I would have never thought that some of the moves that folk are making, that they're really making them. And actually, there's a business that I started, that I put together about 4 years ago, because Gary was lacking a really reputable community development corporation. So I put one together. It's called Gary Eastside Community Development. And now, man, we're capitalized, and I'm taking that same model I did down south, building affordable homes that people can be proud of, and we're going into it with that. But this time, I added another component, and that is training our young folks how
Hmm.
to project management, do project management, construction management, how to carpentry, how to the labor aspect of it, the pieces of it that you never that you don't think, the real
Hmm.
estate side of it. You have to have people to sell. You also have to have people to appraise. You got to have people to do title work. So there's so many
Absolutely.
jobs that's associated with that. And with this community development corporation, I'm bringing all those folk to the table and asking them to pour into the young people that's there, right?
That's
And so
awesome.
here it is. We can go out and build houses and build community without young folk, but just imagine what community will be if we include our young people.
Hmm.
People don't destroy what they build.
Yeah.
And think about it, right? If your job was to paint garages as a young person and you lived in your neighborhood, so you painted like 4 or 5 garages on the block, and then you saw one of your boys or somebody from another neighborhood come and vandalize that garage, you're gonna have to take ownership in that. Even though it's not your garage, you're gonna take
Hmm.
ownership of it because they're doing something to your community, your work. And I think that may be one of the ills in our community, is that we haven't included our young people in the development and the prosperity that's going on around us. There's a handful of people that's getting a lot of prosperity, but they're not including folk. I think we have to really become more inclusive. uh, I think that's really the only requirement when it comes to building God's kingdom, is that we
Hmm.
edify the
Yeah.
kingdom, we edify around it, we edify the church, and that means we edify people. And so
Yes.
we're not feeding the people, and we have to start feeding the people as a collective.
I love that. So that's tying into that community piece as well. And we've got education because I want to talk a little bit about that too, one thing I do want to say at this juncture is that we're not saying that we are know it all, be all, and this is the end of the conversation. We're just starting the conversation. We
Yes.
want to get people thinking and critical thinking and just coming outside of the box because I really believe there are many other entrepreneurs who just have not pursued and they're trying, but still not understanding that your purpose, that why has to be a part of the building blocks of what you're doing, so you're not all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to entrepreneurship and education, what relationship do you see based upon your experience and the knowledge and, in the education system? How do those two play a part?
All right. I think that I think there's a misnomer. There, I think that as a people, we've been fed for so long that you can't do anything without an education. But then we look at, if we take a just stop and pause, and we look at the millionaires and we look at the great thinkers or whatever, many of them didn't have a formal education.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we have to balance that. Yeah, there,
Absolutely.
and you're talking to someone that has a PhD, postdoctorate, and all that kind of stuff, studied here in the States, studied overseas, taught in different nations. And I still come back to the same thing that what's for you is for you. And what I mean by that is that you don't have to
Absolutely.
have a PhD to open a
Yes.
store. You don't
Right.
have to have a PhD to build the next innovation that's going to be on everybody, that's going to be on a billion people's desks tomorrow. You don't have to have a medical degree to figure out how to work, how different things affect the body and the mind that will move someone forward. I mean, we just have so many people doing such great things. But then we've also are being fed that we can't do anything because we don't have education or because we don't have money, and that's not the case. Again, I'll say that the best time to start is now. And what do you start with? What do you need? All you need is you start with what you have at your disposal,
And
right?
start with
So
where you are.
if you always felt that you were meant to be an engineer, you got pencil. I have a sucker here, and hey, you start with that. You figure out what to do. Most engineering great inventions, they're just sketches on paper. Somebody else put
Mm-hmm.
them together. You know, um, so start now and just do it, and then share what it is that you feel, that you believe, that's out there for you. Share it. Now that don't mean that you just go around and sharing everything. Of course, you take some steps to protect your intellectual property, but you got to realize that we all have intellectual property and that we all are leaders in our own right. And so just because you got a degree don't make you smart. My great grandmother who raised me, God bless her, um, she was like, you know what? I raised a bunch of educated fools. She was talking about my uncles and aunts.
Right.
She said, I don't want you to be like that. And then my
Mm-hmm.
great granddad said, I don't want you to be like those who raised me. So she had me in books, and my great granddad had me working with my hands.
Right.
And so I managed to get both. He said, as long as you know how to use your hands, you'll never be hungry, you'll never be broke. She said, as long as you use your mind, you'll never be hungry, you'll never be broke. And somewhere in between, there's the truth.
Mm-hmm.
And I've never been hungry or broke. And I've also have helped other people not be hungry and broke either. So I would say you have to just find that balance, right? You don't have to have a formal education to be educated.
Right.
You don't have to be have an IQ of 186 or whatever to to be intelligent. Intelligence and formal education. I mean, we all have it. It's just a matter of what do we do with it. Sometimes I found myself, especially when I was in college, going in business school down at IU. We had that thing called what, I-Core. I don't know if you
Mm-hmm.
remember that.
Yeah.
ACORE. Acor, whatever it was. I can't even remember the name of it. But anyway, everybody was competing in this thing. It was a lot at stake with that. You're in the business school. Now you have to figure out what school you're going to go to, and you compete for jobs and all this kind of stuff. And I was in one of my classes, and I found myself defending um, drug dealers and all types of other folk. I was like, you know what? You don't got nothing on my boys back home in terms of business acumen. And so I found myself doing that. And then one night I woke up in the middle of the night and I started to reflect. I was like, you know what? That was so true and so profound that we have these great minds on the street using their minds with using what they think that they have, not realizing that they have the whole world, that the world is bigger than their block. Just imagine if they had experience and exposure to get off the block, what they can do.
Absolutely.
And
Yep.
so at that point, like I said, these little things happen in my life to really just let me know that we need to give our young folk experience and exposure. And with that, we set them on fire. And once they're on fire, ain't no way to put that flame out. They're going to do great things because they were meant to do great things. They're descendants of kings and queens. So there's no reason that they won't accomplish what kings and queens accomplished, and that is conquering nations.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. So empowering. I got to ask you this question because I've asked this. Everybody that's coming on this week, I'm asking this question. For this year, this month, what does Black history mean to you now with everything we've gone through?
You know, when I look at when I think about Black history, I just all I see is excellence, right? And we're still creating excellence. We're still designing and building and grooming excellence. But at some place in this whole thing, which I know it happens in every generation, we have to take a little pause and say, you know what will excellence look like tomorrow, and then start preparing for that. So when I look at Black history, I like to look at it from the perspective of Sankofa, right? And then Sankofa says that you have to know where you've come from to know where you're going. And so it's important that we know that history, but we have to use that history to propel us forward. And I think that we're not doing a great job at using that history to propel us forward. We're looking at the history and saying, okay, we did some good stuff. Okay, that's cool. But how are we going to use that good stuff to do even greater stuff? And so I just hope that as we go out there and we celebrate Black history, we also celebrate the up and coming innovators and scientists and creators and musicians and artists and all those things that made excellence then, that we do that to make excellence now and going further. Um, as one book I just finished reading, let me see, I think I have it. Uh, I can't. Hold on one second. Right, I'm just stuck.
Oh, you're fine. Go right ahead.
Stamped from the beginning. Right.
Okay.
This is an awesome book. It's by Ibram Kendi, and this guy took a snapshot of history going all the way back before slavery. He hit slavery, he hit Reconstruction, he hit Jim Crow, he hit the Civil Rights Movement, and all the way up to today with Obama. Right, he ended with Obama. But one place that he spent a lot of time in and talking about, the topic that he started talking about, was this whole concept of the extraordinary Negro, right? And what he says the extraordinary Negro is, I believe that W.E. Du Bois or somebody else that coined that term, but he said that Black folk has a tendency to look at the extraordinary Negro and say that we've made it. But the extraordinary Negro is less than 10% of the Black population. So
Mm-hmm.
how can you say that you made it if less than 10% of you actually realize I'm going to say their purpose, their why, and take to do that, right? And he says that not until that extraordinary Negro realized that he's in a class by himself and that he needs more people in that space, that as a people, we're going to have a difficult time. He said that extraordinary Negro is really should be 90% of the population and not just 10. And so I think that once we get the extraordinary Negroes together
Uh-huh.
and we get them to start to collaborate and synergize and help bring others up, that we'll really start to realize the greatness that God has in store for us. You
That
know,
is awesome.
but
This
yeah,
time went so
this book is called
fast.
Stamp from the Beginning, right?
Down from the
It's
beginning.
yeah, it's 600 pages, but it's a good read. It's a fast read. I, I think I read it. As a matter of fact, I know I read it in less than 4 days, 4 or 5 days. It was a book, it's a page turner. All the stories where they took different perspectives from different Black leaders and had them tell a story. And then they also had the different poets take that same time frame and then do some poetry about it, right? So it really just brings all of these eclectic moments together with eclectic minds, and then paints this picture from slavery to today, going through Reconstruction, Jim Crow, and everything. And it's just an awesome read. Not necessarily about entrepreneurship, not about education, but it's about
Right.
all of that. It's about
Mm-hmm.
us, and it's about us being better people and learning from our experiences of our past.
That's awesome. So we're like in our final minutes. Did you have any last words, any shout outs, anything you wanted to say in this last few moments?
No, you know what? The only person I'm going to shout out is you, because I really do thank you for having the mind to come up with this concept to just bring people on just to have a conversation. And you never know what you're going to get out of conversation.
Absolutely.
I didn't know what I was going to talk about because I don't think I had any questions. If you did send me questions, I didn't look at them, so I apologize for that.
That's
But
okay.
hopefully I didn't go too far off of the. I'm going to say I didn't go too far off the plantation. But again, you know, I just want people to remember that you already have everything that you need to be who you are meant to be. You just have
Hmm.
to activate those things. And the best time to start is now. And the resources that you use is what you have at your disposal today.
Absolutely.
And we
So
also got to realize that we all have much larger networks. So we all go around
yes,
saying how many people we know. How many of those people do you know have you called and told them what you want to do or asked them for their help? You'll be
yes,
surprised how many people will step up to the plate to help you or to open up their network to you so you can get what you want done. And so just remember that you have all the tools, and the best time to start is now.
awesome. Is there a number where people can reach you? For those who will see this and may just want to have a conversation with you, how can people get in touch with you?
Okay, yeah, they can get in touch with me. Let me give my email. Let me see. You can reach me at
I can put it up there
I
later
lead.
on.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
can,
I
I can
lead
put it up
38
there
at
later.
gmail.com. My
Okay.
Twitter feed is I lead 2. I'll give you my phone number. It doesn't make a difference. It's 219-433-4018. That's my
Okay.
business line. So, reach out. And,
Yeah.
I'm quite sure that whatever is done or whoever does so, that, hopefully we can be blessings to one another. Because it's not about just giving. It's not about just taking. It's that relationship of give and take and having that mutual balance that needs to be present for everyone to prosper, right? They say the open tide lifts all boats, rising tide lifts all boats.
Mhm.
So let's make sure that we lift all the boats.
Awesome. Thank you. So tomorrow, your brother will be on, my other dad, Vernon Williams.
Oh,
So
Vernon, yeah, Vernon is great. I
yes,
love Vernon. Yeah.
I love that. He's my other dad. So I'm looking forward to having him on tomorrow. And didn't realize I was representing Kappa Alpha's Newts twice. So I was like, oh,
Well,
wait a
what?
minute.
Noobs are everywhere doing everything, you know what? But that doesn't discount the other brothers from the Qs, the
Yes,
Alphas, the Sigmas, or the Iotas.
yes,
All of them are doing some great things. It's just it just mean that you know what? Right now, the noobs are in your circle. Broaden your circle a little bit. Open up that tent. Let some Qs, Sigmas, Alphas, and Iotas in. And but we'll check them at the door. But go ahead.
yes, 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 yes.
But we'll definitely let them into the party.
Yeah, thank you so much, Marlon. Truly my pleasure just for reconnecting after all this time. I'm going to make sure I keep in touch, keep in touch. Like you said, that mutual connection. Truly an honor and a pleasure to have this conversation with you on today. And I'm going to
Yes.
make sure you get it at the end. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right.
Blessings. Take care.
Blessings to you too.
Yes.